Hey guys, it's Omer from MMOs.com with another quick weekly news recap of all major MMO news and announcements for the week ending May 29th, 2017. This is episode number 97 of the recap, and the first bit of news this week is from Kakao Games regarding Black Desert Online. And it's finally here. Black Desert officially launched on Steam this last week and launched with a massive bang. The game is more popular today than ever before as it got a huge influx of new players. 4 days after Steam launch, the game is hitting over 14,000 concurrent players, and this is significant because everyone playing on Steam is generally a new player, as you couldn't transfer your account over. But then again, I'm sure a bunch of people ended up rebuying the game just so they can play on Steam, as the game only costs $6 on Steam, which is a pretty great price. And with the Steam launch, the new Striker class is also available. The servers themselves are incredibly packed as well. A ton of new people are playing the game. And if you never played Black Desert Online, I strongly recommend you give it a try, at least now, even the free trial version, because all the new player areas are nice and full, it feels really active, and a ton of people are playing. It's a great time to check it out. Next up, some news on Bless. A little bit of good news and a little bit of bad news. First, the bad news. The South Korean version of Bless just had an additional round of server mergers, bringing the total number of servers from the game down to 1 from 2. This comes shortly after another round of server mergers back in January of this year. Given the optimization issues, I'm not surprised to see the game not doing so well. I think the core game is fun, but it just doesn't run well on most PCs. And so on to the good news. The Japanese version of the game did receive an update. They actually revamped the game's skill system and added an auto-pathing feature. So Bless is still being worked on, at least in the Japanese version. And despite the Russian version also shutting down, the Korean one doing so poorly, there's still some hope for the game. No word on when the revamped North American version is going to launch, but given that NeoWiz spent $61 million on Bless already, I don't think they're going to give up on it entirely. I do hope the new version of the game fixes all of its optimization problems, because the game is pretty fun. It would suck to see it shut down before ever actually launching in America, but we'll have to wait and see. Next up, Kritika Online began its closed beta testing here in North America through publisher partner in Mass, the company best known for Terra. Closed beta is set to run until June 13th, and open beta should follow sometime afterwards. The game has 4 available classes at the moment. You got the Gun Mage, Reaper, Rogue, and Warrior, but keep in mind each of those classes can job change advance into one of 2 classes at level 15. The Southeast Asian version of the game already has the Monk class as well, so I'm curious if Inmass will launch with it by the time open beta rolls around, but we'll have to wait and find out. But regardless, Kritika is an action MMORPG, kind of like DFO except with 3D graphics. It has the same persistent hub/instance dungeon design you'll see in games like Dragon Nest and Vindictus, so if you like those kind of games, definitely give it a try. The game is currently founders closed beta only, however you can get closed beta keys on various websites. I think MMOs.com will be giving some away soon as well, so keep an eye out on MMOs.com/giveaway. Moving right along, some astounding bit of data from King of Glory, Tencent's enormously successful new mobile MOBA. The game is a bigger success than I ever imagined it could be. According to a report on Bloomberg, the game made a whopping $435 million in the month of April. Let the number sink in for a moment. This free-to-play, League of Legends-like mobile MOBA made more money in 1 month than most MMORPGs ever make, like overall. For some context, World of Warcraft made about $815 million in 2015 all year. EVE Online developer CCP only made about $86 million all year in 2016. So King of Glory makes over 5 times what CCP makes all year in a single month. And just some additional context for you guys, if it continues to make $400 million a month, it'll be close to $5 billion in a full year, which will actually be more money than League of Legends, World of Warcraft, Dungeon Fighter Online, Overwatch, Dota 2 all combined, which is absolutely nuts. I played the game and it's actually surprisingly fun. I don't really like mobile games, but I did like this one. It's launching in the West as Strike of Kings, so if you want to see what the hublub is about, check out Strike of Kings when it actually launches. No word on when it's happening yet though, but should be soon. Up next, some pretty huge news from Digital Extremes, the folks who make Warframe. They announced that they're working on a new free-to-play competitive FPS game called Keystone. The game has been in development for some time already by a second internal development team and already entered closed alpha tests just this last week. Unfortunately, no gameplay videos or screenshots have been released, so I can't show you anything but that picture in the background. I know what you're all thinking too, how can Digital Extremes be working on another game when Warframe is still in quote beta? The Warframe development team though isn't working on this game, it's an entirely different team. I'm curious to see how Keystone will do, because Digital Extremes has been tremendously successful with Warframe. Warframe is actually one of the most successful free-to-play like Western developed games in such a long time. It's doing amazing. I wonder if Keystone will perform nearly as well. We'll have to wait and see though, because we got nothing to work with, no release dates, no gameplay video, no screenshots, nothing. Next up, Wst Online makes it into another weekly recap, this time with a bit of drama. Apparently the game is going to be using the Nightshade engine, the engine developed by Free Reign Entertainment, which is affiliated with Sergei Titov, the man behind games like The War Z, Ramirez Aftermath, and Shattered Skies. This obviously raised a lot of concern by some players, as Free Reign Entertainment games have a lot of hate. Wst Online devs did clarify that even though they're using the Nightshade engine, Sergei Titov is not involved in the project in any way, and that they use the engine because it will save them a lot of development time. Still though, the fact that they're skipping Kickstarter altogether and aiming for a launch this year is still pretty impressive. I think we should judge the game itself and not just whatever engine it's using. It might turn out to be solid, but again, we'll have to wait and see. Up next, popular Japanese mobile RPG Logres launched into the West this last week. Despite me never hearing about the game, the Japanese version does have over 8 million downloads. The game features more than 15 character jobs, real-time co-op, raid bosses, and tons of interesting cosmetics. I think we'll be seeing a lot more mobile Japanese games launching in the West, and some of the most profitable and successful mobile games do come from Japan. Though honestly, I'm still waiting to play Fate Grand Order when that launches later this summer because I've heard great things about that one. Next up, in a double whammy of Japanese game news, the developer behind Logres announced a cross-platform PC and mobile MMO called Caravan Stories. Not too much is known about this game though. Just the article published on Famitsu revealed that players can choose from 6 human-like and 6 non-human-like races. When creating a character, they can build a party with various characters and monsters, which makes it sort of sound like a hero collector. But another thing players can do is move around with their caravan or their mobile base, which can actually help them in battle. And while the video in the background is some kind of trailer for the game, it doesn't really highlight any actual gameplay, so I'm curious what that's going to be all about. It does seem like some kind of oddball hero collector on the PC/mobile, but again, we'll have to wait and see. Up next, EverQuest gets a new Planes of Power lock progression server called Ongar, which launched this last week. The progression server will only unlock new content up until Planes of Power, which essentially makes it a kind of classic server. It's worth noting that the server is incredibly popular at the moment and has tons of new players just playing, and all the beginner areas are incredibly full. Unfortunately, it's only available to paying members. Non-members or free-to-play users can still play EverQuest, just not on any of the progression servers. It's pretty remarkable though that despite launching in 1998, EverQuest still remains fairly popular even today. So if you played EverQuest back in the day and you want to relive your nostalgia, the Ongar server is well worth checking out. Moving right along to a bit of newer MMORPG news. Devilian got a new update this last week called the 7.0 update, which increased the game's level cap to 60 and introduced a brand new heroic dungeon to the game called Dimensional Fortress. Trying to celebrate the launch of the 7.0 update by giving players a bunch of goodies just for logging in. Anyone who logs in from now until the end of May 31st gets all these freebies. So if you played Devilian, got the max level, got bored, you can come back and get to level 70 now. And you get a bunch of goodies for logging in. Next up, some industry news. Unity Technologies, the company that develops the popular Unity engine, announced that they raised $400 million from investors, which values the company at $2.6 billion. $2.6 billion is a big chunk of change, but it seems actually quite low to me considering how many mobile games are powered by Unity. Heck, even Blizzard Hearthstone is built on Unity, and not just that though, King of Glory and Pokemon Go were also built on Unity. And a ton of virtual reality and augmented reality products are also being built on the engine. Unity continues to be a big player in the game engine market, and I suspect it'll only continue to grow from here. Up next, Revelation Online launched the Iceborne update this last week, which introduced with it a number of new PvE and PvP combat activities. Most notably on the PvP front, a new guild vs guild tournament and a new battleground called Snowpine Peak have been added to the game. On the PvE front, the new Inner Demon Trials have also been added. Since the game's launch, it did receive a steady stream of updates, so it's helped keep the game fresh. If you never played Revelation Online, it's probably worth checking out because it is one of the bigger MMORPG launches of the year so far. It's worth at least trying. Moving right along, more character boost news, this time for Final Fantasy XIV. The character boosts are coming to Final Fantasy XIV on June 16th, a few days before the Stormblood expansion launches. The character boost increases your character's job level to 60 instantly, but they don't come cheap. Each will cost about $25 and only one can be consumed per character until patch 4.1. They won't be usable on any of the new classes, so you can't use them on the Samurai or the Red Mage. These boosts are a good way to skip right to the newest content in the game if you haven't played FF14 yet, but they're definitely a bit on the pricey side, but I think that's a bit fair. A bunch of other upcoming PvP and class changes were outlined in the game's producer letter as well, so there's a ton of changes coming to Final Fantasy XIV with the upcoming expansion, which I've already pre-ordered and I'm excited for. Next up, Funcom explained the free-to-play model for the Secret World Legends, which is set to launch on June 26th. The game will have two currencies, Aurum and Marks of Favor. Aurum is the cash shop currency, while Marks of Favor are earned in-game. Both currencies can be traded freely, which means players who never spend any actual cash can still get cash shop items by trading in-game currency for cash shop currency with other players. So it's basically the same system found in Blade & Soul, Maple Story, and even Black Desert Online to a degree. The cash shop itself will only sell stuff like character slots, inventory space, vanity items, and progression boosters, so no pay-to-win stuff, at least for the time being. The game is still set to launch on June 26th, but the Steam launch will be pushed back until July. Next up, Albion Online's final update before launch is the Hector update, which is set to be released on June 7th. Remember guys, the game is launching on July 17th, which means no more wipes after July 17th. The Hector update itself though will introduce a new black market merchant to the game, which is actually pretty cool because the way it works is when you sell equipment to that merchant, that loot gets redistributed to mobs and chests that'll drop them as loot when other players kill them, which is a bit odd because all the crappy loot will be sold to them, which is still pretty funny though. Hellgates are also being revamped, and a bunch of other changes are taking place too, but I'm excited to play this game once it actually launches on July 17th because no more wipes after that. But the Hector update is set to launch on June 7th. Moving right along, the Elder Scrolls Online Morrowind PC Early Access has already begun. If you pre-ordered the game, you can now play Morrowind right away. It's a bit on the expensive side though. The expansion costs $40, while the base game is only $30. Unfortunately for the majority of people that do play Elder Scrolls Online, which actually happens to be on console, there is no early access for the console versions. You have to wait for the full release on June 6th. Surprisingly, according to Steam charts, the PC player base for ESO hasn't increased that much with the big expansion. It went from averaging about 9,300 players online to averaging about 12,000 or so, which is still a nice little sizable bump, but not too big. But again, most of the players do play on console. Moving right along, a bit of awesome news for Awesomenauts. Since the game went free to play this last week, the player base has exploded. It gets about 4,500 players online peak now, whereas before it only got about 300, 400 players online at any given time, so it's awesome to see Awesomenauts doing quite well. It breathed life into an otherwise 5-year-old game now, so now the game is booming, and hopefully it continues that momentum. Moving right along, some big news for NCSoft's Blade & Soul. The long-awaited Soul Gunner class, which is now known as the Maestro, will finally go live on the Korean version of the game on June 14th. Soul Gunner was first announced almost a year ago, and the game was first announced that it would go free to play, but after that, it was nowhere to be found. Luckily, it is finally happening in the South Korean version. No word on when this class will release in the Western version, but I suspect probably shortly afterwards. The next and last bit of news this week comes from a game called Justice, which is being published by NetEase and developed by NetEase in China. The first gameplay trailer has been revealed for the game, and it's an action MMORPG that's set to begin its closed beta on July 21st. No word on a Western release date just yet, but I suspect if it does really well in China, it may get a launch over here in the West. Apparently, player choice does play a big role in Justice, as player actions and even their reactions to NPCs supposedly play a big role in the game's story. If I get into the Chinese beta, I'll definitely do a first look for this one. Graphically, it looks awesome, but it kind of reminds me of Lineage Eternal or Lost Ark, but we'll have to see it when the game itself launches. But yeah, that's it this week, guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the podcast. Later, guys.